I'm actually, particularly with one issue, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from the listeners and viewers on uh, on two things. One, do you pay attention to the prediction markets, i.e., Polymarket or Kalshi? Two, if you do, what is it that you pay attention to? Is it cultural predictions? Is it sports predictions? Is it political predictions? Three, do you participate in them? So I will make a full confession. I participated for the very first time on the Kalshi markets over the weekend, and it had to do with I was doing it simply to see if anybody was leaking the information of the college football playoff bracket. So on Saturday, I sort of, for the first time, I signed up for a Kalshi account and I bought shares of Miami making the playoff. And I bought shares at 25 cents, which really meant that, essentially what the market was saying, they have a 1 in 4 shot of making the playoff, or so in the prediction markets it was said. Notre Dame was in the 90s. It was like 92, 93 percentile. And Alabama was in the mid 70s, 74, 75 percentile. So I did it because I was mostly curious to see if this was going to leak and we were going to see people try to manipulate the prediction markets like we saw with the Nobel Peace Prize, where it turned out the information got out. I think it wasn't an official leak. It was, I think somebody hacked into a website and saw a website preview before folks knew. And all of a sudden you saw the prediction markets move as if they knew something because it turned out they did know something. And I just wanted to see if somebody was going to do that. So as I was waiting for the college football playoff, I was watching this happen. And you would see a lot of volatility, but it wasn't 100%. It was like, no, people think they know, but they don't know, right? You could see how that works. Um, it gave me some reassurance. I was glad to see it, that something, wasn't leaking or somebody wasn't trying to game the system. Um, and obviously, I ended up making a couple of bucks on how that worked. I actually was monitoring it. I assumed that the share price of the Miami prediction was going to go up sooner than it did. Like it didn't really. It's clear the prediction markets did not believe Miami was going to get in, and that to me is a reflection of what the conversation was, right? If nobody has information, then they're basing it on sort of the zeitgeist, right? But I bring this up because recently CNN signed a deal with Kalshi where they're going to, in some form, um, start including or noting what the prediction markets are saying about topics they might be covering. So, for instance, um, yesterday we saw the Federal Reserve cut interest rates. Well, that was a market you could bet on, or you could, prediction market there. And it was in the 70s over the last, few days, and then it got up to the 85, 90, et cetera. Um, but as much as I do enjoy sports gambling, okay, you've heard me reference it before. Some of you know I do football picks for Tony Kornheiser on his podcast. I fully confess to enjoying it. Um, But I've been extraordinarily uncomfortable with the idea of betting on politics or betting on elections. I haven't ruled it. I'm not trying to be, sort of a school marm about this, but it is. I'm not yet comfortable with it, and I'm curious what you guys think. And I'm asking you send questions, put some comments in the comment section, or go ahead and send us a comment via Ask Chuck, and we'll dive into it next week. Um, there's a lot of fear out there that do you, at what point I believe in the wisdom of crowds, and at the same time, I don't want to see crowds manipulate an outcome, right? And what is that line? What should be something that is okay, it's okay to bet, and what is something that is, should we really be betting on this? Um, I'll give you an example. Let me pull up a few things that they offer up that some things that make sense and others that don't. So, for instance, Kalshi will allow you to bet on what the Federal Reserve Chair Jay Powell will say during his December press conference. And the choices are: will he attribute inflation to the tariffs? Um, will he says if he says dot plot at his December 2025 post, meeting of the Federal Reserve, um, that would be somehow a win here. Um, if if he uses if he refers to the ADP jobs report, apparently that would somehow be something you could win a bet on. There's sort of like it's one thing to bet on whether there'll be an interest rate cut, which again, I'm uncomfortable. The state of Virginia, let me give you an example. The state of Virginia does not allow in its sports mobile app for people to gamble on who might win an award. Like if I wanted to gamble on who wins the Heisman Trophy, state of Virginia wouldn't do that. They are very strict in how what they approved for gambling, and that was games of chance, right? And a sporting event in some ways is something that isn't knowable beforehand. Versus, in theory, there is somebody that will know the answer to who won the Heisman Trophy before it is announced, versus an actual sporting event that we're all watching in real time. Right. And so they have decided not to legalize bets on outcomes that some committee or group of people may know in advance. And that's, I think, the line here. You got to ask yourself, like, look, you can bet on who will be the Democratic nominee, or excuse me, buy shares of who you think will be the Democratic nominee. You can buy shares of who you think Trump will nominate to be Fed chair. Okay, but how do we know somebody within Trump's circle isn't gaming this and isn't going to, try to make money on this with quote insider information, right? In the actual financial markets, it is illegal to insider trade, right? And there's no doubt there'll be certainly the rules about insider trading will apply to this if it's ever shown. Um, but then there are things like, when will Trump announce his new chair of the Federal Reserve? So this is something that will it be before December 20th? Well, that's 6 cents. Will it be before the end of the calendar year? That's 25% believe that. Will it be before January 15th? Another 72%. And then, I guess everybody would get their money back if none of those hit, or everybody loses if none of those hit. But if you already know the answer to this, or you're long on something and you've got access to Trump, and, what if we have a president who's extraordinarily transactional and who's open to somebody financially lobbying them, which is a more polite way of saying bribe. And, I'm not saying, I have no idea whether we would ever have an American president who would be transactional like that on things like pardons or whatever. Um, But that's the part of this that I will admit gives me some pause.
There's a reason results matter more than promises. Just like there's a reason Morgan and Morgan has become America's largest injury law firm. For the last 35 years, they've recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. It includes cases where insurance companies offered next to nothing, short of shortchanging, seeing if they could get away with it. And Morgan and Morgan fought back, and they won millions. In Pennsylvania, one client was awarded $26 million. It was a staggering 40 times the amount that the insurance company originally offered. That offer, $650,000, whatever it took to sort of get away without paying. So with more than 1,000 lawyers across the country, Morgan & Morgan knows how to deliver for everyday people. So if you're injured, you're looking for a lawyer, check out forthepeople.com/Toddcast or dial pound law, pound 529 on your cell phone. And remember, all law firms are not the same. So give Morgan & Morgan a look. Their fee is free unless they win.
There's some parts of this that feels like the Democratic nominee in Texas, that looking at those markets, that's of interest to me. In case you're wondering, right now, Tallarico is 56 cents. and Jasmine Crockett is at 42 cents. So that's not what the polling says right now, but this is what bettors or predictors, I guess you would say, believe is going to be the outcome of that. And so, look, they've been betting on elections in the UK. You could bet on American elections in overseas markets from before. But I guess what I'm getting at here is if we're going to go down this road, there probably needs to be a bit more regulation around it. There probably needs to be sort of a line drawn in the sand that is, hey, that's a that's too um, uh, that's too much of a thing that can be manipulated. So take this question, this that you can bet on the following on Kalshi: who will visit Mar-a-Lago before 2026? Um, and you can just and there's all sorts of choices that you can buy shares of. Benjamin Netanyahu, that according to Kalshi, that's the leading prediction on that one at 87 cents out of a dollar. MBS of Saudi Arabia, that's at 13. He's second on the list. Zelensky's at 10 cents. He's third on the list. Sam Altman's at 7. Brittany Mahomes is at 5. Jamie Dimon is at 5. Jerome Powell's at 4. Kim Kardashian is at 2. It's kind of silly, right? But here's something else. There was a huge spike for Netanyahu over the last day or two. And I think there's an assumption that he's going to somehow make his way out here. He's desperate for Trump to continue to lobby for a pardon on his behalf with the president of Israel. So there may be some motivation there. But it's one of those things that feels like somebody already knows the answer, but the public didn't see it. So we have a betting market on it, right? Um, Look, we're a free country. If you choose to do this with your money, it's your choice to do this with the money. The question I have is, how comfortable are you with news organizations incorporating this into their coverage, which is a decision CNN made? Um, we already have a lot of people that I think correctly complain that our campaign coverage is always focused on the polls, right? That it's horse race coverage. Will this make all political and policy coverage horse race coverage? Are we going to see stories about the debate over extending healthcare subsidies? And oh, by the way, the prediction markets, well, they think there's going to be a deal and that there'll be a deal to extend these subsidies sometime by the end of January. There may not be any reporting that says that. It may be true, it may not be true. Is that stuff worth incorporating in reporting if you're seeing it? And look, in fairness to them, let's see how they use it. Let's see how they incorporate it. But again, I do this more of as you can hear in my voice as somebody who, again, I am I'm a bit libertarian on the vices, right? You want to legalize cannabis, you want to put a high age limit on it, legalize other vices, I'm gambling, things like that. I'm you know that's your business, right? I am I am an empathetic libertarian here. The question is whether our political debate, our policy debates, are they going to be enhanced or harmed by the casinofication of news? Um, so obviously, you can hear my hesitance on this. You can hear my concern on this. Um, but I'm not unpersuadable on this. So that's why this is one of those. I'd love to hear what many of you think on this, whether any of you have enough of an opinion to express it to me. Um, if you don't want to put your name on it, I get that too, by the way, on this. So please do shoot me a note on this. Where are you on these prediction markets? I am a gawker of them. I'm fascinated to see. A lot of times it's just representative of what the zeitgeist is already saying or what the polling is indicating or what reporting has already been out there. Um, so for instance, they've got a market of which world leaders will be out by the end of the year. Which world leader do you think is number one on their list? If you said Nicolas Maduro, you'd be right, right? Well, that's common sense. But it's only trading at 11 cents, which means it's essentially the prediction markets believe there's only essentially a 1 in 10 chance that Maduro is out before the end of this calendar year. Um, does that matter to you? Does that at all? And here's the thing, it may have no impact whatsoever, but the minute I reported that, have I planted a seed in your head and somehow created a form of sort of news consumption bias, if you will, right? Um, so anyway, that's the beauty of this format. Uh, is is we can sort of throw out this idea. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have concerns. I'm intrigued, and and I have my own hesitations and all of those things. So I'd love for you to share that.